Can we all take our seats? It's 2 o'clock. Good afternoon and welcome to the public. I would like to remind you all that the meeting is live on the Council's YouTube channel. Before we move into this afternoon's proceedings, there are a few housekeeping matters that I'd like to bring to members' attention. One, I'd like to remind members and officers to stand when they are speaking in the chamber. Two, can I please remind members that other than the proposer of a motion, any speeches must be limited to 3 minutes and directed to an item or question under discussion. 3, members will have seen we have quite a busy agenda today. I would very much like to keep to 3 hours, but will consider a short extension of time if it is necessary. Please may I remind members, officers, including the press and public that are in attendance today, that all mobile phones must be placed in silent mode and no calls should be made or received in the chamber during the meeting. 4, I would also encourage all members who are asking questions that they direct them through the chair. Agenda item 1 is apologies for absence. I understand we have received apologies of absence from councillors Dale, Ezel-Chelvin, Gallagher, Foster, Dunbar, Ball and Bridget. Are there any others? Councillor Carr.
Chair, I've received apologies from Councillor Humphrey.
Councillor Humphrey. Any others? Councillor Vilcek.
Councillor Watson.
Councillor Watson, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Item 2 on the agenda is minutes. This next item is minutes of the meeting of the County Council held on the 1st of November as circulated to be confirmed as a true record on pages 13 to 36. Can we confirm them as a true record? Can I have a proposer, please? Proposed by Councillor Wearmouth, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Are we agreed with that? Thank you very much. Item 3 is disclosure of members' interest. Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Chair. Coming to the motion that's way down the agenda, there's 2 things I need to declare, and I'm reading an email as we sit here from South Tyneside Council that, when we get to the motion, I'll have understood that it's a lengthy email. However, I am in receipt, not yet, but I've paid in for a Northumberland County Council pension. And I know that I don't need to declare that, but with me being on the representative of this council on that body, I need to declare that I will take part in the debate, but I'll probably abstain.
Right. You've had something's been mentioned about pensions, and it's been mentioned by quite a lot of members in advance. So I'll pass over to the monitoring officer, who might just say something quickly on that.
Thank you, Chair. There do seem to be a number of people who are members of the LGPS. What I would say is that that does not preclude you from participating in the discussion on the item. Returns on the pension fund to individuals are determined by statute and regulations, not by the investment strategy, so I'm content that you should participate.
Right, so that's cleared up that issue. Does anyone have an interest on anything else? No, thank you very much. I will go to the next item on the agenda, which is announcements by the Chair, Leader or Head of Paid Service. And I've got some announcements which are His Majesty the King's New Year's Honours List. I'm pleased to report the following people, particularly connected with Northumberland, received honours in His Majesty the King's New Year's Honours List. Officers of the Order of the British Empire, OBE, Mr Brian Andrew Palmer of Stocksfield, Founder and Chief Executive of Tharis Group Limited for services to manufacturing and skills. Michelle Southern of Blythe, Founder and Director of Street Paws for services to homeless people and their pets. Members of the Order of the British Empire MBE. Mr Patrick Chapman of Hexham for services to the creative industry and to higher education. Dr Alice Elizabeth Ellis of Morpeth, Consultant Urologist, South Tyneside and Sunderland NHS Foundation Trust for services to the NHS. Gwyneth Kathleen Mackenzie of Riding Mill, Team District Commissioner, Hadrian District Scout for services to young people and to the community in Northumberland, North Tyneside and Castle upon Tyne. Maurice Scott Waitman of Berwick upon Tweed, Founding Chair and Trustee, Berwick Youth Project for services to young people in Berwick upon Tweed. Mr Waitman was also a former Liberal Democrat group leader for Northumberland County Council. Members of the British Empire Medal BEM, Mr Ronald Wright of Red Row, Fleet Technical Officer, Northumberland Fire and Rescue Service for Public Service. And without any further ado, I pass over to the leader for his announcements.
Thank you very much indeed. I'd like to just welcome, we have 1 or 2 members of the peer review team who are with us today. I'd like to welcome them. I'd like to welcome all of the members, some of whom I haven't seen. So Happy New Year to those who haven't. I hope I get a slightly more comfortable ride than I had when I went to Blythe and Ashington local area committee the other night, but I'm sure I will. I'd just like to touch on 2 very quick things. First of all, at the moment, the order is being laid in Parliament for the new Mayoral Combined Authority, NEMCA, and things are progressing very well in terms of continuing dialogue, discussions and preparation for the new authority to begin in May. It is a great day today because we have agreed the timetable for the opening of the Northumberland line, something that we've all been waiting for years and years and years and years and years. The incredible engineering challenges that have faced our contractors mean that we have to phase things slightly, but please don't worry. All of the stations will open, and they will be open as soon as they can be. But that train will be running in just a few months' time. And also, if you happen to be in Seaton Valley, you'll see the beginning of the start of this fantastic new super school that's being built there for the pupils that really deserve it in that part of Northumberland. And of course, we'll be soon following that with a new one in Amble and in Berwick. And one other very quick thing, you'll remember we launched our new environment policy not long ago, and with that we announced a new environment and climate fund that groups and individuals could bid into. And I'm very pleased to say that £55,000 fund is already oversubscribed. We've had over 35 applications, and we've awarded money to 17 organisations to be able to do really exciting things within their parishes and local communities. So I'm really pleased about that. One final thing is that this is the Armed Forces Covenant, the Employer Recognition Scheme, the Gold Award for 2023. And this is something that was not really very common amongst local councils. We were one of the first to become involved in this. And it's really pleasing that we've been awarded this for the next 5 years. And I would like to just simply acknowledge the work that Councillor Watson and that Councillor Castle have done within the Armed Forces community to ensure that we've won this. And I'd like to thank Jackie Roll and all our staff who have been fantastic in keeping up that really close link with armed forces. So thank you to all of them, and I'm very proud that we have this. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5 on the agenda is public questions. We've received no questions from the public. Item 6 is questions. I'm now moving into the questions. We have 5 questions submitted. I'd like to remind members we have 20 minutes allocated for this session, and I would like us to get through as many of the questions as possible within the allocated time. So please stick to asking the question, including if you're going to ask a supplementary question. If we can't get through the questions in the allotted time, then written responses will be given. Question 1 is from Councillor Fairless Aitken to Councillor Plojai.
Hi, thanks, Chair. Happy New Year, all. Right, in Hexham, our Hussars, our heritage scheme, directed and funded by NCC, is in the final stages of completion, and it's looking fabulous. Thank you. Our high street's really coming alive again. However, there's one glaring omission from this, the old bus station, which has been empty and sitting in a state of disrepair now for the last 7 years. During my by-election in December 2021, 5 million was promised by our local MP. It was still in the budget, I think, last year, and waiting to be spent. The property is currently on the market through owners Dysart for 1.5 million, and residents in our town are really keen for it to be bought back and repurposed. I'm asking here today, would it be possible to purchase the bus station and fully complete the Heritage High Street Action Zone, or is this not best value for our town?
Councillor Plojai.
Thank you, Councillor, and Happy New Year to you too. The High Street Heritage Action Zone in Hexham has been a real success, and I'm pleased that you have recognized that and just how fabulous it is looking. And thank you for your continued engagement with it. We are asking as you that the former bus station site is progressed. But as you know, the site is owned by the private concern, so it's out of our hands, but I can assure you that we meet regularly with Dysart Development, and we will update you and other Hexham members if there is any progress about that. At this point of time, the price they would like for that site is beyond the independent valuation we received, and we need them to go down with the price so we can comply with local government finance spending regime, basically, as simple as that. And as soon as that will happen, we will deliver for that site and for Hexham residents, and I will update you and all other Hexham members about it.
Supplementary, Councillor
Yes,
Fairsaken?
please. Yes, I thought that might be the case. I'm just thinking man hours on this 7 years as opposed to best value. The supplementary question would be, as a follow-up to that then, in that case, to kind of hasten these negotiations along, would we be able to at least serve a Section 215 order on the site frontage, which is an absolute eyesore now that everything's been complete, to make it look presentable, or even to prod Dysart into new plans? A 215 would be superb.
The pleasure.
So I will have to discuss that with Rob Murphy and Planning Department, but maybe Councillor Horncastle knows the answer, but I don't think he does.
It's your question, not mine.
That's what I thought. So, but I will discuss that with the Planning Department and come back to you with a written response.
Right. Councillor Hill to Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. To Councillor Patterson, what is your honest assessment of the availability and effectiveness of mental health support services in the Berwick area?
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hill, and good afternoon. 1 in 4 people in the UK have experienced mental health issues in the last year. So your question is indeed an important one. Our assessment is there is a strong offer of mental health support in Berwick that measures up well compared to provision across the county and the region. The Regional NHS Mental Health Trust, CNTW, have a community treatment based in Berwick Town Centre that includes consultant psychiatry, community psychiatry, nursing support, and psychology. The team works closely with GP services, and the Adult Social Care North mental health team provide a multidisciplinary approach to assess mental health, care needs, and consider appropriate interventions of therapy for support. CNTW also have a team that supports adults who experience difficulties related to trauma. Additionally, NHS Trailblazers is an excellent website detailing mental health support across Northumberland. Where appropriate, the Council commissions domiciliary care, supported living and residential care services in the Berwick area that are used by people with mental health conditions. Also, let's not forget the fantastic work of the voluntary sector offering mental health support, including services such as the Northumberland Recovery College, neurodivergent and dementia groups, as well as support for younger people aged 13 to 25 through the Berwick Youth Project. This support, the support for young people, in addition to mental health support options, is available to schools. So whilst we think there is a good range of support available, we will always look to improve our offer with partners and welcome any feedback you and other members might have on this. Indeed, this could be something the Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committee may wish to look at with partners. Thank you.
Councillor Hill, supplementary.
Thank you. Given that after listening to feedback from residents, I regrettably can't share that optimistic view about the effectiveness of mental health services. Would you agree to come to Berwick and meet with me to discuss this further, and also meet with residents who have fed back their concerns about mental health support services? For example, the resident who told me that at least 30 people that they know have died on drug recovery programmes in Berwick over the last decade. And the resident who asked through their GP for to be referred for group therapy, and they were told it's only available in Morpeth and Cramlington. So would you agree to come to Berwick and discuss this further with me and residents who've raised the concern?
Councillor Patterson.
Absolutely, and I'm sure our Director of Adult Social Care, Mr Neil Bradley, would gladly come with me to discuss this with you. What I didn't say in what I read out before, we do have a brand new, first in Northumberland, safe haven opening in Ashington. And you might think, well, that's Ashington, it's not Berwick. However, they do have an online virtual waiting room which people can come into and talk directly to a mental health professional. But happy to come up to Berwick, Councillor Hill, and we can make arrangements for that. Thank you very much.
Question 3 is from Councillor Wallace to Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Chair. Not only are locals unable in many cases to find homes along the Northumberland coastline due to the explosion of second homes, those who are fortunate to live there must have been extremely worried about additional coastal erosion happening during recent storms. Does the Cabinet member, Councillor Horncastle, not believe the County Council should meet with its partners, such as the Crown, National Trust, AONB, NIFCA and Environment Agency? Can we be seen to take the lead in coordinating the protection of our communities living on the coastline, ensuring residents' homes and jobs are safe by looking at the various solutions to the eternal problem of coastal erosion and share those solutions with our residents? Thank you.
Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace, for that, this important matter. Coastal erosion is a key issue nationally for coastal communities. In Northumberland, the Council's Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management Team is an active part of the North East Coastal Group. This group brings together all relevant councils together with the Environment Agency and other partners to manage coastal erosion issues. Alongside this, our approach to coastal flooding and erosion is developed and documented through the Northumberland and North Tyneside Shoreline Management Plan, which is led jointly by the Environment Agency and Northumberland County Council Flood and Coastal Erosion Team. The plan is being reviewed currently and an updated version will be presented to the County Council later this year. We know recent storms along our coast have resulted in visible changes to sand levels along parts of the coast, and we expect that beaches will be charged with sand over time. We are not aware of any recent storms having created any significant erosion risks to homes along our coast. We have, however, commissioned additional post-storm surveys via the North East Coastal Group at locations including Camas, Linemouth and New Biggin to ensure we understand the impact of such events. It's also worth highlighting our success in delivering many actions on erosion and securing funding for coastal management schemes such as the restoration of Sea Houses Harbour Pier and protecting and reinforcing the harbour wall at Little Shore in Amble to safeguard homes and businesses. So this is an important issue for our coastal communities, and I hope, Councillor Wallace, that this answer gives you reassurance that something we treat very seriously and are playing a full part in addressing.
Supplementary, Councillor Wallace.
Yes, very briefly, Chair. It does give me reassurances, but of course, it's the residents and people who work on the coastline who seek the most reassurances. As the first as a ward councillor that I've been informed that someone's actually looking at coastal erosion, in the Camas area. With the recent storms we've had, I think most people are aware of how that sand that came from Skegness, which was never going to move, has gone from Newbiggin, how outfall pipes have been destroyed, and what could be Anglo-Saxon settlements have been found on the Camas dunes. It's easy to see because there's no sand. And recently, Councillor Carr raised it at Ashington and Blythe Loch, damage to the promenade in the south beach area of Blythe. So it is happening with these storms, and I welcome any participation I can take in it. And as Councillor Pattinson spoke earlier, I would like to praise her and the work she did earlier, Chairman, and the work that was done with coastal communities over a couple of years where such improvements as car parking was found. And perhaps that's what's needed again, so people can have a voice. That's all I'm asking for, Councillor Horncastle. When people write to me and say what's happening, I've been unable to answer, but I'm a little bit more reassured after what you said today. Thank you.
Councillor Horncastle.
Thanks, Councillor Wallace. What I can reassure you with, and when the County Council and other agencies that I've just mentioned, they actually go through exercises and with the other agencies and authorities right down to Yorkshire. And we just recently had one of these exercises where everybody's involved. That's obviously including the Fire and Rescue Service. So what I can say is that two things. One, the sand you talk about, I have regular meetings with Paul Jones sitting there, and I'm led to believe that the sand will eventually recharge itself. And the other thing is that, what was it? I've just forgotten now, I should have said the other way around. If there is any problems, they have exercised it thoroughly, and it is not like something happened for the first time. They know exactly, work like clockwork, exactly what to do if there is any problems. So I think you can rest assured, and as a local member, I know you will be heavily involved, and all the members up and down the coast will be heavily involved if there is any problems. And also, they also look ahead with modelling, and if there was any risk or even high tides, those communities down there would be informed.
Thank you. Councillor Nisbet.
The home zone in the Croft Road, I've been on about this tirelessly for years now. It's been neglected for a lot of years. I've had Paul Jones down and other officers down to have a look at it. Still nothing happened. I've been using me small schemes to patch it up time and time again. And for the last 6 years, I have placed it on the LTP and it's been knocked back over and over again. What other routes exist to get this work done for residents? Thank you.
Councillor Riddle.
Thank you, Councillor Nisbet. Obviously, I could not agree with you that the home zone at Croft has been neglected. The area has continued to receive all the appropriate routine and regular maintenance services, which have included sweeping, weed spraying, grass cutting, highway inspection and necessary repairs. As you'll be aware, you mentioned the LTP, and as you'll be aware, the Council must prioritise the use of its LTP funding across the whole of the highway network across the county. Officers have considered additional requests that have been put forward for improvements and additional maintenance over time relative to other needs elsewhere. As you know, these are scored by officers, not by me as Cabinet Member or by other members. Only this year we have spent over £70,000 on resurfacing scheme for Madison Street and have also carried out patching repairs to parts of Disraeli Street and Durban Street. And you ask what else could be done? Well, not directly for highways, but as you know, the Council is also taking forward a housing renewal and improvement neighbourhoods as part of the £90 million Blythe Town investment plan. This will include, obviously, street works and public realm as well.
Supplementary, Councillor Nisbet.
I'm on about more of the highways because it's becoming, it's just not people to drive down there, can't get down properly. I did spend quite a lot of my schemes on that project, which was on Disraeli Street and Durban Street, 33 grand of it. So it has come out of my scheme's money over the past few years. I would just like to know if there's anything else. The problem we've got is the heavy traffic coming through there now, going to Morrison's and through to Blythe because of the can't get round on the Water Road and Bridge Street through the roads being closed off. It's just becoming very, to me, it's dangerous for cars. There must be a lot of repairs happening to cars now. It is getting ridiculous. And that is Durban Street, Disraeli Street and Wright Street. Something needs to be done.
Supplement, Councillor Riddle.
Thank you, Kath, for that supplementary. What I will say is that, I'm taking the advice of officers of what's been done and what they've been out and looked at it, etc. I'm willing to come out with an officer and view it with you if that will help. But, I believe that we have met all our duties and that we are doing the best we can with the resources we have. Thank you.
I'd like to invite you down.
Okay, thank you.
Question 5 is from Councillor Robinson to Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Chair, and a Happy New Year to one and all. Now then, there's a very important part of Bedlington heritage missing, namely the Hertford Hall gates. These gates have a Grade 2 star listing by English Heritage, and I believe only 2 sets in the country have that recognition. These being one. I also believe they are now in the possession of this county council, and have been for some time. And there was a project talk about some years ago to see them renovated. So my question is, what's happening to them, please?
Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. I must admit, when this question came in, I was very interested in it because I went into a lot of research before I got the information back from officers. So it's a good question, this. And there's some eye-watering figures involved in it. So here's the proper response. Thank you for this question, Councillor Robinson, as we are passionate about heritage in all parts of the county. Hertford Hall gates are Grade 2 star listed structures. They were manufactured at Colebrookdale for exhibiting at the Vienna Universal Exhibition of 1873, after which they were purchased for Hertford Hall. The gates were removed for repair without the benefit of listed building consent in 2004. Some repairs were completed, but work stalled due to escalating costs. The estate went into administration in 2009, and in 2014, the workshop which held the gates refused to store them any longer. The council was unable to find another organisation able to take them on in their current condition. So, in a situation of last resort, took custody, that's us, the council took custody of them whilst the solution is found. Historic England funded a condition report which at the time, 2013, that's 10, 11 years ago now, estimated repair costs of £390,000. Annual maintenance costs of over 2,500 actually, and maintenance repainting costs of 25,000 every 15 years. These figures will now be significantly higher. Since then, Historic England has funded the cleaning, recording and stable packaging of the gates for long-term storage, and they are now securely stored in a council depot. Discussions regarding the possibility of a museum taking them into their collection stalled whilst legal ownership of the gates was established. This has been a complex and lengthy process, as the gates went first to Bona Vacantia and then to Crown Estates, who confirmed they would not act as owner. At the moment, the gates are securely packaged and stored in a council depot, and the council is starting to reopen discussions with the museum.
Supplementary, Councillor Robinson.
I kind of know the history of them, Councillor. What I'm asking is what's happening to them now. Now, what I would like to see, you talked about eye-watering figures, and I bet you wish you'd had them done for 300 grand back in the day. But can we not get a small team together to hunt out some funding to get these things done? Because this is the equivalent of the Tyne Bridge going missing overnight. In the world that these gates live in, they're the very best examples in the country. It's something we should be celebrating, not just as a county, but regionally. They're that important. So let's get something done with them, please.
Councillor Horncastle?
I understand your concerns, but legally they aren't. Although we're looking after them, they're not in our possession, they're not ours. And to get a small team together and do some work on them, there'd have to be people that, don't forget, these are grade 2 star listed structures. There'd have to be professional people recognised by English Heritage and others. All I can do in the meantime is have discussions with Rob Nerfin to see exactly what the up-to-date is on the discussions with this museum. But that is all the information we have at the moment. But I take on board your concerns.
Thank you. We now move on to item 7 on the agenda, which is the annual portfolio report, looking after our communities. And I'd like to invite Councillor Stewart to present this report.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Council. I'm not just delighted to produce this report, I'm obviously really proud of it. It is a report looking back over the last 12 months, and you'll all be aware there's been major changes to senior officers and a realignment of portfolios. Thank you to all those who have contributed to this report, including those who have retired, including Paul Headley, Chief Fire Officer, Phil Soderquist, Head of PP and Housing at the time. But we now look to the future. So I feel bad in this rather large report not to read out every last word and mention so many individuals in it. But, Council, I'm sure you've read it. It's been provided to you for some time. And you've also read all the other reports. It's gone through scrutiny. And you feel that it is actually a fantastic result for all of my teams in there. Looking at it, it's linked to the corporate plan, achieving value for money, tackling inequalities and driving economic growth and jobs. Public protection is one which I'm just going to pick out a few headlines here. Successfully delivered the 22-23 Food and Feed Safety and Standards Service Plan. All targets are met or exceeded. Fantastic result there. Delivery is focused on the ask from the Food Standards Agency. So what does that mean? That means they're going out inspecting the food before it gets into the human food chain. Go out inspecting hotels, pubs and restaurants, making sure that we as residents and also the visitors to this fantastic county feel safe when they go in there. It's good for tourism and the economy. The animal welfare team achieved the RSPCA's Platinum Award for its stray dog collection service after 15 years of gold standard awards. We all have issues with the dog welfare, or the animal welfare team. They do far more than just chasing people around about dogs mess on streets, which everybody seems to have an issue with at the moment. So I'm really proud of those. I've spoken to them this morning, it's the last time, about some work they're doing there. The environmental enforcement team are successful in getting £33,000 grant for fly tipping intervention. It's a scourge of all councils throughout the country, fly tipping. This purchased 16 new CCTV cameras which are currently deployed. I had the pleasure of visiting Blyth, where they were deployed first of all, and meeting the local members there. I understand there's been great success and some offenders have been identified. The Trade and Standards team have seized over 3,000 illegal vapes and tobacco products. Avian flu is another one, unfortunately keeps on cropping up, and with our tourism offer here, decimated in some parts of our county, but it's also in small units as well throughout there. Special mention for the civil contingency team as well, a small team who have worked throughout various storms and floods recently supporting our communities. The building control, in a year, the building control service oversees the work valued at £100 million. The service has overseen major construction projects in Wooler, Morpeth, Berwick and Blyth Culture Centre, driving businesses and jobs. The licensing team in public protection are responsible for issuing licences across a large number, including taxis, alcohol, street trading, animal boarding and zoos. The service has produced a number of reports on various licence matters. Main focus of the last year has been the rising costs impacted by many areas. The Fire and Rescue Service has produced its first annual report, which I've got a copy here. If anybody would like to see that, has been produced. It's been discussed at Scrutiny as well. There was cross-party support, and one member for an opposition party said was, how can we scrutinise you when you scrutinise yourselves so well? Fantastic. There's a whole list of ways in which the Fire and Rescue Service are moving forward now. Embodied a strategic performance board and refined our core and service measures, reassurance and challenge panel, which meets on probably 2 monthly basis. So many more we've done there. I know that the team would get at me if I failed to mention the aerial ladder platform, the ALP. That's achieving value for money, and it's saved so much time and effort on people's properties already in this county. Collaborated with Northumberland Police and Mountain Rescue and the purchase of a 6x6 off-road vehicle funded through Northumberland Partnership Against Rural Crime. Introduced a drone capability with community risk and response. This is a modern fire and rescue service looking to the future. We've got a very proud history in this county, but now we are looking to the future. Recently, the fire and rescue team received a national award for being the top performing provider of training, and that was for the wildfire training team. The Safe and Northumberland Partnership is something that you probably don't know a huge amount about. We're changing that. We want that to be part of everything we're doing here. It tackles inequalities and stronger communities are being developed working with our partners. We have greater understanding of demand with community safety strategic needs assessment. Tackling inequalities through health, safe and well-being visits is a major priority for both the Safe Partnership and the Fire and Rescue team. You'll see in the annual report 91% of positive outcomes from the visits that firefighters have been attending. We've had funding success as well. Several projects have brought in £170,000 through different schemes to tackle antisocial behaviour in the county. Also in my portfolio, I've got the registration service. This is obviously for the births, deaths and marriages. So 3 different parts of people's lives. So important to everybody there. If we talk about the weddings, we are now attracting more weddings than ever before in this county, which is fantastic for tourism and for the economy. We're showing off our county at its best. And obviously, you'll be aware it's appearing on national TV. So the standards there have been tested nationally and have come out exceptionally well. You can read a reference on page 41 for that. I particularly like the family hubs effect. Now, the registration service are going into the fantastic family hubs, which you hear Councillor Guy Renner-Thompson talking so keenly upon. Dame Andrea Lebson, the government's early years advisors, visited one recently at Blythe, highlight the impact and the potential for delivering the service in a family-centric setting. The coroner's service, also in my portfolio, it's well evidenced that we're providing a really good service, which is very comforting for the families at the time of need. On page 42, middle paragraph, welcomed the Chief Coroner for England and Wales, who praised openly the service that's been provided here. So we'll look to the future now. Public Protection will continue with their work to ensure that we've got the highest safety levels possible. The Fire and Rescue Service is now under a new Chief Fire Officer, Deputy Chief Fire Officer, and a great close team. During 2023-24, Northumberland Fire and Rescue Service was inspected by His Majesty's Inspector Constabulary and Fire Service. The report was published on 29th of November 23. I was delighted the overall Northumberland had made significant improvements since the previous inspection. No causes of concern, no inadequate grades, no requires improvement grades, 7 adequate and 4 good grades. That's something for this, as you are all members of the Fire Authority, should be extremely proud of. And I just mentioned at this point, my Deputy Chair of the Fire Service, Colin Horncastle, does a fantastic job alongside me, and also Alex Wallace, who is my opposition, my shadow. He challenges us at every stage, but he does it in a really friendly, firm way as well. So thank you, Alex, for doing that. If you ask me a question later, I'll probably take that back, mate, okay? The inspectors found the Thumland Fire and Rescue Service to be good at making the service affordable now and in the future, supporting the Council's priority of achieving value for money. Tackling inequalities. Driving economic growth, page 43. The Safe and Northumberland Partnership Development will be continuing working with the partners, which are statutory partners, to its serious and violent legal duty, the Counter-Terrorism Act. The registration service will continue with the citizenship. Unfortunately, I can't make the citizenship event tomorrow due to other commitments. That is something which I absolutely love going to. And I know Colin, when he did it, and the fire chief recently attended one of those, fantastic service there as well. Lots of changes nationally with the coroner's service, and that's identified on page 45. So that's a quick rundown there. Extremely proud of the work that every team member has done over the last 12 months. And in my opinion, we're in a very safe place for our residents and visitors in Northumberland.
Thank you. Do we have any members' questions on that? Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really happy to hear that the Council has managed to get the 16 CCTV cameras, and I think it's obvious from this report that it seems to have been proven that these have been a great success. And really my question is, if it works well, let's roll it out further. And can we not budget for more of these cameras ourselves on an invest-to-save basis? I'm asking because I'm really interested to know what options are available to those areas who are not deemed to be in the hotspot areas at the moment. And I would include my own ward in that, although I would argue that we have a lot of fly tipping. At the minute, I've got one case where the fly tipping's on an open piece of land in the middle of the village, right next to the primary school. It's been there for at least 3 months, a mattress. The kiddies are walking past it every day. It's been reported on Fix My Street with the reply that it's not NCC land, go onto the land registry. Now, I would argue that this isn't really a suitable reply for an individual. You know, as a council, do we not have a moral obligation just to chase that up, to see who that land belongs to? We can't throw this back and just pass the buck back to the individual. And secondly, what options are there available to this for this now? Because as far as I can see, the only option now is for the parish council to actually pay somebody to remove it. And that's not what they want to start and do on a regular basis. But I've got to congratulate the fact that we've got these cameras again, and I can see that it going forward. I think that's something that would need to be rolling out further across the county. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question, or several questions in that. Everybody gets fly tipping issues at some time. I appreciate your ward. I do look at the figures. We get figures on a weekly basis. I appreciate our problems there. So far as the cameras are concerned, yes, let's look at that. Delighted to have the funding there, and we're in discussions about further funding in the future, rather than coming out with council funds. It's something which the government is really keen on progressing as well. That one there, by all means, you contact me if you think there's a problem, you're not getting answers there. Lovely to say that it's Colin Horncastle's problem, that one, for fly tipping, so I'll batter across to him. Fix My Street, it is a good system, but we realised because of the winter months, there's been a lot of extra work given there. I've had recent incidents in my area, and I've managed to get a landowner who's removed it and apologised. We do get a lot of farm incidents as well, so any issues, drop me an email.
I've got a list of a few people here. But I'll just remind us that we stick to questions so we can get through the order of the business of the council, please. Councillor Morford.
Thank you, and thank you for the report, Gordon. It's great to see that Public Protection has been working hard in reaction to the avian flu outbreak in Northumberland seabirds, and also that it's keen to work with partners to control any future disease outbreaks. Wildlife health is really important to us, and it impacts on human health too, as the reference to the concept of One Health in our new environmental policy statement makes clear. The Council has recently declared an ecological emergency, and the prevention of disease is better than cure. So could I ask you to look into the possibility of partnering with local and national wildlife organisations on the prevention of disease outbreaks in our wildlife. This would be of great benefit to human as well as animal health.
Councillor Stewart.
I think we've seen on a number of occasions different animal health issues have come across into human beings. Most happy to take that forward.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. My question's on the Fire and Rescue Service. Are they still doing visits to the homes to check smoke alarms, etc., and get that security, as well as doing visits to the schools? Yes, the children might think it's fun as to the visits, seeing the fire engine and the men and women turning up, but it's that message that's getting out to the children and going home. It's that hopefully reducing the fires and the risks of what happens if there is fires.
Yeah, thank you very much. They are, is a short answer. 91% of the visits last year had a positive outcome. That could be referring somebody onto for additional help. Maybe somebody's got a trip hazard or something like that. Communities together work very closely with those. They are going to schools, where I would also praise the Thumberland Fire and Rescue Services. The Princess Trust, fantastic scheme we've got going there, which introduces the kids. And I've been on numerous presentations there. We've also got the fire cadets, and they are going into schools. I have been there with them in schools recently. If you think there's any particular problem there, prevention is better than cure, drop me an email and we'll see what we can do. I had the pleasure of coming up to Berwick a few weeks ago and meeting your firefighters as well. A really fantastic team up there.
Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a couple of questions, if you don't mind. One is with regard to Fix My Street, and I would just like to thank Chris Westerby for setting this up. It's absolutely a tremendous success. However, I notice they're probably now inundated and it will get worse because of the adverse weather, potholes, etc. And I know that's top of the list of priorities. And I just wonder if, you know, how they're going to be able to cope with all these and prioritise with all the, you know, with this weather that they'll be receiving from residents. If you don't mind. But I really, Chris Westerby came to our local area committee and did a marvellous presentation on how it's going to be improved and so forth. And my second, well, it's just, you know, just to see how we could be reassured that these things are going. I know that it's a matter of urgency and the goal priority, but how long will it take to prioritise? Because people are asking that. Sorry, I know it doesn't. I know you're sitting there and looking, but it's just it's a relevant question. And the other thing is, I'm looking at homelessness. Now, you know, we know that landlords are now having to sell their properties because of mortgage rates, etc. Can I ask, you know, what the council, how the housing stocking is, and what position are in now to rehome some of these people who are deemed homeless, without having to go in some of these sheltered accommodations that might not be suitable for their needs? Thank you.
I'm going to allow Councillor Stewart to answer that, but I'm being very liberal on our interpretation of the report in front of us. There's a lot that crossed over a lot of different portfolios, I felt, but I think Councillor Stewart may wish to respond.
Fix My Street, it is working. I'll take the credit for it. Actually, it has nothing to do with me, but I don't mind taking the credit. Homelessness, again, I would refer you to Colin Horncastle. It did...
Sorry, point of order, Councillor Stewart, but it's in your report, Fix My Street and homelessness. It's in your report. It's in your report. It's in interims, you know, it's in there. Huh?
It's the next report, Councillor.
I must apologise, Councillor Stewart. I'm terribly sorry. I'm getting ahead of...
Councillor Grimshaw, you've just been fined a cup of coffee and a bun, all right?
Are there any further questions do we have? No, thank you very much for that then. I'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the report of the Communities in Place Overview and Scrutiny Interim Report to Council. And I'd like to invite Councillor Oliver to present this report.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to thank Councillor Grimshaw for giving me pre-warning of the questions. It's a very, the Communities in Place is obviously a very important scrutiny committee, as I'm sure they all are, but this affects all the things that impact our residents in the communities right across the county. We've got a very active committee, very representative of the whole council. We've got rural members from rural wards like Wooler. We've got members from more urban wards in the southeast, in Ashington and Blythe, and out in the west in Riding Mill and so on. So it's a mixture of urban and rural, north, south, east and west. So really good representation. I'd like to thank all of the officers and the cabinet members that have appeared before the committee this year. And I'd also like to thank Councillor Reid, who was, because he chaired part of this year, or this past year, a fantastic job he did. So I'll sort of pick out a few key highlights. First of all, just to address some of the things that are coming, some of the important issues. And we've got a new regime of scrutiny, and that's really around, rather than sort of the day before a cabinet meeting, looking at a cabinet report and making a few sort of comments that don't really make much difference. We're actually taking a more proactive view, working with officers, looking at the key things, listening to the communities, understanding what the issues are coming out of communities, what the work programme is going further ahead, seeing where we can get involved as a committee. And that's, it's early days, but it looks like it's going to work really well, and we had a perfect example this week. But a couple of highlights from this year coming up. We've got Fix My Street, very topical at the moment with all the bad weather that Councillor Grimshaw's mentioned. I'm sure those of us that look at the reports in our wards, we're all seeing loads of reports about potholes. It's not the first time this council has experienced bad weather, and the officers in that department are very experienced. I'm sure they'll be working very hard to get on top of it. I understand the numbers are coming down. Fix My Street is great because it's allowing our residents to interact directly with the council in a very easy way. But there are some teething problems, and some of the sort of post-report communication needs to. So it's an area that this committee is sort of very focused on, and we will be monitoring it going forward. We've also got a motion later about divesting from fossil fuels. So I'm sure everybody that's interested in that will also be interested in the council's local cycling and walking investment plans. Another area we'll be looking at this year. As community representatives, we're all very interested in Section 106 money that gets achieved by the council with planning decisions. There'll be no new ways of collecting and spending that going forward, so it's something that we'll all be looking at. And I'm sure everybody's aware of the recent sort of announcements around Active Northumberland and the change of, we've got a new leisure centre operator. We are one of the best leisure providers in the country, and this is potentially an opportunity to improve that still further, and so that's something that we'll be looking at during this year. And destination management is another area. The tourism, particularly in the north and the west of the county, is a sort of very large part of the economic activity in those areas. So that's another area. A few things that we've looked at. I won't go through them all because they're all listed in the report. But one important one was the firefighters' decontamination report. We heard a lot about a very sort of thorough and quite emotional report about the impacts that the contamination can have on firefighters, and the importance of the protective equipment and the sort of cleaning and decontamination regimes. And that resulted in a recommendation from the committee to actually spend more money and invest in better and more kit for that. And I have to say that was taken on by the Cabinet and the Council, and that is happening. So that's a really positive outcome. We've heard about sort of policy development areas like food waste trials, glass recycling, and the tree management strategy. I know Councillor Dodd's very keen for us to keep looking at the potential risks of ash dieback, and we will be doing that. We've heard about rough sleeping. We've got more coming on rough sleeping this year. It's not as big a problem in Northumberland as it is in some of the more urban areas, but any one person rough sleeping is a problem. So it's an area that we, as a council, have a responsibility to get involved in. We will be looking at that. So that, I think, in a nutshell, is just a sort of quick gallop through the work of this committee over the last year. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Do you have any questions? I've got Councillor Fairless-Aitken.
Yes, thanks. Very interesting report, Nick. I just wonder on page 51 where you mentioned the ash dieback.
Could you stand up?
Sorry.
Thank you.
I can multitask, honest. The ash dieback. I wonder if we can have a pledge to replace them, where they are. I've got a few marked up in our ward at the moment, and I'd just like a kind of commitment to replace like for like another indigenous species in the same area. Is that possible?
I I can't answer for that because I'm obviously Scrutiny Chair and not a member of the Cabinet, but certainly we'll include that on the agenda when this item comes to the scrutiny. We'll ask officers for a view on that. Obviously, not all of the ash trees that are dying are on council land, so where they're not on council land, we'll only be able to influence rather than enforce that sort of thing. But it's a point well made, and it's something we will consider when it comes to committee.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. It's a tree management strategy again I want to ask questions about. Now, I understand the ash dieback problem, I understand we've got to manage it and all the rest of it, but my postbag's inundated with tree problems in estates. So are we going to include that? Are we going to include the trees that were planted 40, 30 years ago, which are now towering over residential properties and causing untold damage to them, actually? Are we going to include that in the tree management strategy going forward?
I think I think it's probably safe to say for all of us as councillors, if trees didn't shed their leaves, our lives would be easier. It does cause a problem. It's also true, and this is something we discussed in the committee, that for every person that wants a tree removing, because it's too close to their house or the leaves fall in their garden, there are also a lot of people who would like to see more trees planted and certainly don't want those trees removing. So I think the council introduced during the past year a new policy for looking at how that sort of assessed, and it's basically if the tree is causing a significant, if it's dying and it's likely to cause a sort of risk, then there is an enforcement process. But I think generally the policy is that trees are an important fixture in our landscape and part of our communities and our place, and that we should, where possible, leave them alone.
Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you. And once again, Chair, I must apologise to Councillor Stewart. I think the page turned up, but it was just, to reiterate about Chris Westerby and the tremendous work he's done. I'm sure that's, saved the county council a lot of money in the long term with doing this and being able to do it. Like I say, it's a problem is how have we got plenty of people to address it as the demand comes in, which we know, and Councillor Oliver's right. Fix My Street's just new. So, you don't know how you'll be inundated and how you'll be able to cope, and it's just reassurance for that. That's all I was asking. And the other thing is with homelessness, and probably I know it's a tedious, task, and there's not a supply for the demand. And my biggest fear is because of the landlords that's having to sell their properties now, because of mortgage rates, etc., going up, and they can't afford now they want to sell their properties to just exist. And the people who are left homeless because they've got a certain date to get out, I know the communities together are doing a wonderful job in trying to find these people places, but I just wondered, how many properties that we have available perhaps at any one time to house these people, because they may be on top of the list, but, they've got to be deemed homeless, and where do they go when they can't be homed if there's not sufficient places for them to be, without going into somewhere that might not be suitable for their needs? Thank you.
I think we can make sure that all of those points are considered when we consider the action plan.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Thank you, Chair.
Right. And then I've got Councillor Hunter.
Thank you. Mine's on Fix My Street as well. I welcome this, but it has created thousands and thousands of reports. What I'm actually getting for some residents is why 6 months on And it's not potholes they're reporting, they're just getting the monthly, has it been fixed, and not any action. And I think it's just, you know, it's something, it's a new programme, it needs to be monitored, but we don't want to get residents offside by saying it's not worth it, we're just actually getting asked for an update.
Councillor Oliver.
Yes, and that's a very important point, and it is something I've actually been discussing it today with Councillor Riddle, and I've discussed it with officers, and that is exactly what we will be looking at during this year. And it's partly about integrating systems so that the reporting is automated. It's also partly about the time of year where you know, the volumes are very, very high.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Dickinson, and I think I'll make this the final question, if that's okay.
Thank you very much. Just one for your work programme, Nick. It's around Fix My Street again. Obviously, there's a lot of love for it in the room, but there are some teething problems. I'm also learning lots of neighbourly disputes with people taking pictures of each other's cars and where they're parked and things like that, which is a little bit concerning when it includes lots of their details. But one of the biggest things, having met with a collection of parish councils, was residents often get a response that says this is the local parish council's responsibility, and then it didn't go anywhere. So then the parish council didn't know that that was a reported issue. So it's just gone round in circles for a little while until the parish council's told that that was a problem. So I wonder if you could look at maybe how that links up together. And then the second thing was the system telling us as members or residents who've put it in that a job's been closed and complete. But when you look at it, it hasn't. And I wonder if that's something to do with times and targets and rather than shutting them down when they've actually been completed. So I wonder if you could look at those two things, please.
Yeah, certainly. On your first point about parking, there's a very good Facebook page where you can post pictures of people parking badly. But no, on the other points, very seriously, we will include those in the review.
Okay, so thank you for that, members. I go to item 9 on the agenda, which is the Leader's Report of the introduction of corporate safeguarding policy. I'd like to invite Councillor Sanderson to present this report.
Thank you very much. This is a new policy, councillors. It's actually in addition to the existing policies and procedures that we have, but it applies to all of us, whether we work for the council, within the council, for the council as contractors or volunteers, and above all, as members. That if we see any child, any elderly person, any vulnerable person, or indeed any person suffering unnecessarily, it is our duty to report. If I could just touch on what it actually says in the report, because this is very much part of our Tackling Inequalities programme going forward. Every child and adult has a right to participate in a safe society without any violence, fear, abuse, bullying or discrimination. So this gives us more power and more organisation to be able to deal with, God forbid, this kind of behaviour anywhere near the council. The policy defines the role of designated manager, and there will be 6 of these for each particular directorate. And of course, at the moment, though, if there is anything before this comes in, if you agree it today, in April, if there is any issue that you see now, then you would go either to the Chief Executive's office or to Sarah Farrell, who is our HR head. So that is what this is about. It is about to add some more muscle to what is an incredibly important measure that affects all of us as councillors, and it means it's going to be easier to report anything that you see that should not be happening in a straightforward, confidential, simple way. And I absolutely recommend the recommendation which you see before you, and I would formally propose that.
Right, that's been proposed. I need a seconder. Are you seconding, Councillor Hill? Thank you. I was seconded by Councillor Hill. Do members have any brief questions of clarification before we move to the debate on this item? Councillor Swinburne.
Thank you, Chair. This subject came up in our recent joint scrutiny committee, and the question I asked at the time, and I fully support this, was it's easy, I'm saying it's easy, there are obviously telltale signs which can be recognised across all ages and all sexes with regards to certain types of abuse. What I would like to see and I'm asking, is it possible to look into communicating some things out for members and even the public to identify some of those more difficult signs, symptoms of different types of abuse, as I say, across all ages and all sexes. Some of those that are less obvious. I know through some of the pub watch work I've seen that the police do stuff for publicans, etc., on signs and symptoms that they can identify. So my question is, can we find something we can communicate out to try and identify those things that are less obvious, please?
Yes, of course. In the report, it does mention a training programme and an awareness campaign for staff, but also for elected members if they want to have it. So that will be rolled out and offered to all of us.
Councillor Hill, do you have a question?
Yes, obviously I fully support this. I've seconded it. I just want to ask, I'm presuming the answer is yes, but the recent tragic case in Skegness, which is a reminder of the importance of people not aware. A father and a 2-year-old were known to children's services in the council. Social services knocked on the door, didn't get an answer, left it a few days, and very tragically, the father was found dead and the 2-year-old had starved to death. And it just shows the reminder of act, don't take any risks if there's any concern. So there's going to be an inquiry, so we will follow that and just remind everyone of the importance of acting on any concerns.
Councillor Dickinson, did you have your question, or was you just indicating someone else did?
No. I was just, obviously we fully support this and the proposal to adopt it. My query was around, I'm pleased you mentioned the awareness, Glenn, because it's really important that people understand the signs and symptoms of these things. For me, it's about the member training element, and if this was a normal employment organisation, that would be compulsory. And I'd like to see it to be mandatory for members, whether it's an e-video, sent your email or whatever, so long as it's collected that people have had the opportunity and watched a safeguarding video that gives them that information face to face. I think otherwise it's another policy that members, some will actively pursue and others will not.
I welcome that, and it can be included in our safeguarding training, which is coming up. And let's just do that. Can we do that, Chief Executive?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Carty.
Yeah, I'm sorry it's hard to stand. I've just got two things. It's really important this, right, and I totally agree with Scott, everybody should be trained. I mean, when I came into council, I was actually quite shocked that councillors were going into care homes and they weren't DBS checked. So I fought for that within corporate parenting. What I would like to see, the training, once it's completed and everything, if you do it online, can you let the voluntary sector have access to that as well? We've all got to work together on this because it's vital, right? And it's no good just us being checked and staff being checked. You've got a massive voluntary sector out there working, doing youth projects and things like that, and we all need to be doing the same thing. It all needs to be streamlined. The other thing that I can't see on here, I've just had a quick look, is I can't see anything about trafficking, and that's really quite big at the minute with the county lines and things like that. So it's like the human trafficking element of it. So I think something needs to be added about that, and I do think that's an essential component of a child protection policy.
Thank you. I think that trafficking will be involved and completely embedded in the whole safeguarding training that we will be getting, but we'll certainly mention that. I think as far as the voluntary organisations that are not necessarily involved with the council, let's do that, but after we've done the members and after we've done our staff and the volunteers and all the people that are working with us as part of this organisation. Let's do them first, and then we can certainly look at that, Eileen, later on.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick point of clarity on section 6, which relates to councillors, refers to councillors and constituents throughout it. It was just to check whether that was the correct terminology, or should it be residents rather than constituents within section 6?
I'm Sorry, could you just repeat that? I'm so sorry.
Sorry, is that not picking up properly? Section 6 regarding councillors refers to councillors and constituents. It was just to check, is that the correct terminology, or should constituents be residents?
Right. And I've finally got Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you. It's just going from Councillor Carty, it's just also, could we include scamming? Because a lot of vulnerable people that we represent have been scammed. And I just wonder, I mean, I know Councillor Patterson had worked on this when we were on a committee, and I don't know how forward it's moved since then, but we do worry about the vulnerable people being scammed, and I think we'd like to see if we could do a little bit more in that area, please, if you don't mind.
Yes, absolutely. I think that could well be involved within the training. It's not just elderly people, vulnerable people. A lot of us get scammed, and it's a terrible thing to happen. And so that definitely will be part of the training. Thank you.
Right. I propose we move to debate. Does anyone wish to contribute to debate? Councillor Morford.
Thank you. So we're 100% behind the intent of the policy, but we feel it needs a little bit more work. So, for example, in paragraph 6.3, which is on page 63, it says that councillors should tell constituents who ask for assistance to seek legal advice. But then in paragraph 11.2 on page 66, it says they should phone one call. So we're happy to approve the introduction of the policy, but could we ask that paragraph 6.3 is rewritten to provide a little more clarity, please?
I'm enormously grateful to you for spotting that. It was the deliberate mistake, of course, of the day. So thank you for doing that. You win the prize, and we'll certainly we'll sort that out.
Right.
Thank you.
Return to debate. Councillor Murphy.
that I know that somebody is vulnerable, I'm going to follow that up. So I don't think that's helpful, because if they go away and don't do it, and I haven't done it, then nobody's done it. So I think that's not within the spirit of the policy, and I think we should look at that again. Thanks.
But, the proposer may wish to finish some of these points at the end. I'll carry on with the debate. Any further people wish to contribute to the debate? No, so I'll go over to Leader to sum up then.
All right, so can I thank you very much indeed for the input that you've made. I still think that I hear what you say, and I get the point that Councillor Morford has made. I would be keen to try and, if we can agree this today, and we can make there will be a way of involving all members to see any little changes we might make. Yeah, so if you allow it to get into the statute book today, that would be great, with the proviso, and this will be minuted, that we will contact all members about the points that have been made and our suggested changes. And if you're all happy with that, that's fine. If they're not, it'll come back to next council. Is that okay? I'm just keen to keep this going if we can. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, it has been proposed by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Hill. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Council. I'll now move on to item 10 on the agenda, which is the corporate parenting report, and I'd like to invite Councillor Sanderson to present this report.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief, because I know all group meetings have had a briefing recently about our corporate parenting role. Just to sum up on a couple of things, I felt it was important that the leader, whoever it is, should chair the corporate parenting board, and I hope that would continue for however long it takes. It's important that, because it is really the crucial role that we take as all of us are councillors and all of us are corporate parents. We are corporate parents to a range of young people, who have had an awful start in life, who may still be having an awful time in their life, and who could be in their teens and finding that life is simply unbearable. Often as a result of court orders, but always very much in need of a helping hand and absolute solid support. And that comfort of having a home life and the importance of knowing that they have that support to take them forward through their lives and take them onto a job and a role in life that will put behind them the awfulness that so many have had to endure. We have had a Department for Education visit in November last year that said the leadership and management and the approach is good, ambitious, aspirational, and there is real passion and commitment. And I actually would completely back that from what I've seen in my time in the chair of that. But I've also seen that absolute passion and ambition and commitment of the cross-party members who sit on that group. And I thank them all very much indeed, genuinely, for everything that they have brought to that group and for the commitment that they all share and express in their role sitting on that group. At the moment, we've got 423 cared for people and 150 care leavers at the moment. So we have quite a number of people that rely on all of us. So what I would like to do, if I may, is just say this is the update. I would like to bring a regular report back to Council just to keep you in the loop about what's happening. Obviously, if anything was of disturbing nature, you would know straight away. But it's just to tell you that we think the process is working well, that the young people are grateful. We know that a number of them, and it says in the report, they're grateful for what we are doing. We must always continue to do this. And so I hope very much that this is not needing a vote, but it was just really to bring you up to speed with where we are and to continue the dialogue that I will have with you going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this? No, thank you. I will go to the next item on the agenda, which is the Fire and Rescue Service Inspection Report for the Cabinet Member for looking after our communities. I'll invite Councillor Stewart to present this report. Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you, Chair. His Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary and Fire Service don't take these lightly. They came into the fire service, they went to every station, spoke to every member of staff as far as practicable for several weeks. This is the document they produced, and I'll tell you that the seasoned firefighters I was with at the time were hugging, kissing in an appropriate way, and crying because they were so proud of this report. So that is the feelings there. Unfortunately, there was a firefighter who I was hearing about who had a long-term illness, and she sadly died. But so ingrained in the service, she wanted daily updates, so the fire chief and the deputy was visiting her on a daily basis. That is the feeling we've got for our fire service. So today, Council, it's to note this. I have got copies of the report here, if anybody would like to take away. They're obviously on the website as well. I'm just going to read a few paragraphs out. At the time of the publication, 9 Fire and Rescue Service reports have been published in round 3 so far. These include Northumberland, Warwickshire, Cornwall, Merseyside, Cambridgeshire, Cheshire, Buckinghamshire, Surrey and Bedfordshire. Huge authorities. Overall, Northumberland has made significant improvements since the previous inspection. Key highlights are listed there. Can't read in your papers, but obviously glowing report. Of special note is the judgment of Northumberland is good at promoting the high values and culture. If you're watching the TV and following the news of a few months ago, that is something which some authorities and fire authorities weren't up to our standard for. Service has well-defined values which staff understood. Found staff at all levels of the service showing behaviours that reflect service values. Recent changes in both the fire and rescue leadership team and the county council leadership team has meant a committed focus on values and culture throughout the organisation. In the response to the survey put out by the inspectors, 94% of people, that's 119 out of 126, felt they were treated with respect by the people they work with in this county. Could go on, but fantastic report. We should all be very proud of.
Thank you. Are there any questions on that report? I don't see any hands, so I'll move progress and we go to item 12 on the agenda, which is a report of the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Corporate Services, Council Tax Support Scheme 2024 to 2025. And I'd like to invite Councillor Wearmouth to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. We always have a lively debate on this every time it comes round. Could I remind you, first of all, of the purpose of this report, which is it's an important part of setting the council tax base and part of the budgetary process that we must agree before we move on to our budget in February. In terms of links to the corporate plan, they're very obvious. We have a requirement to ensure value for money, and we also wish to help those that need our help the most in terms of tackling inequalities. There's a recommendation which I'll go to straight away, which is that we recommend the Council Tax Support Scheme attached to the published report. You can see that on the Council website, and that be adopted as the Council's local scheme for the financial year 24 through 25. What's in that is no surprise. It's what we've had for the last number of years, which is a level of support for those people who require council tax support of a maximum of 92% and a minimum of 8%. That, in financial terms, in terms of what it costs the council to provide that level of support, in the last financial year was £26.7 million. It's a significant sum that we spend every year to make sure that we support those residents in need and wholeheartedly endorse us providing that level of support in the future. What you're not agreeing in this report today, and I know it'll come up in terms of questions if I didn't tackle it now, would be the level of additional assistance that we provide in terms of hardship. That's something that's set in the budget later on in the budget cycle. Previously, we've been able to provide additional assistance to the 92%. And that's been with some assistance from the government in terms of grant support. We are able to provide some additional support in the coming financial year, and that's likely to be £100 for those people that request some additional hardship support. That ultimately will be, as I say, decided in the budget in due course. You're being asked specifically, in this case, to agree the level of support at 92%, going down to 8%, depending on the applicant. And no doubt you'll have questions, you'll have debate and comments, and I'll Chair, open the floor to that now.
Would you propose that?
I'm happy to propose that.
And that's been seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Do we have any brief questions of clarification before we move to the debate on this item? Councillor Hunter.
Thank you. Page 80, 5.1, just clarifying the report is due for approval at Cabinet on the 10th of October 23 and full council on the 1st of November 23.
Typo.
Well,
quite correct. And do we have the dates to hand to just correct that for the record? There we go.
So Cabinet just gone and Council today, this evening. Right. Any further questions? Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Chair. I did have a question, and Councillor Wearmouth has sort of answered it before I actually preempted it. And it was with regard to, I mean, obviously the proposal is that the scheme remains the same at 92%, and that's quite clear. But just for clarification, I was going to ask about the expected DWP grant. I mean, are we expecting that this will come in after March 2024? And am I right in thinking, Councillor Wearmouth, that you've just said that the extra help would be £100, whereas it was £200 last year? And if so, how did we get to that figure?
Chair, thank you. Through you. The number, I think, last year was 175, looking to the 151 officer. Yes, so I think the year before that it was 200. So this year we're proposing 100. However, we are anticipating that the government may provide some additional funding. Ultimately, and slightly irritatingly, we won't know until after the budget is set, and so we'll look at that and see what we can do to understand that a little bit better, and I'll try to address that in the budget speech that we make in February and give you an update if I'm able. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? No, I can't see any. So I will now move on to debate on this item. Does anyone wish to make debate? Councillor Dickinson.
I only put my hand up because he said no. So, Happy New Year, Glenn. Right, so the difficulty we all know with this policy is we've talked about it over a number of years. We are at the point now where we've failed to change minds, but we'd rather have something than nothing for the residents in Northumberland. So today, as a New Year gift, we're happy to accept it with the council, which, you know, I'm sure you've spent lots of time preparing for this battle today, but we will, and you won't be able to go away and tell everyone how nasty I am to you again, Glenn, so here we are. So the Labour Party will support this today on the basis that we continue to get the assurances that we've had around the funding that's arriving, and that the confirmations from the Section 151 who said they will be available in March, but as a whole, it's better than nothing.
Is there any further debate? No. Did you wish to sum up as the proposer?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the shortest debate that we've probably ever had on that. Thank you, Councillor Dickinson, for at least introducing some debate. Thank you very much indeed. Home early, perhaps. Who knows?
It's been proposed and it's been seconded. All those in favour?
Well done. That's good.
Yes, it's not unanimous.
It's not everybody. It's not everybody.
No, it's not.
Even councillor.
All those against?
There we go.
All those in abstention?
It's carried.
Thank you, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so I carry on and we move to item 13 on the agenda, which is a report of the Deputy Leader again, Cabinet Member for Corporate Resort. Yeah. Can I have a little bit of order, please? I know we're all shocked about that last one, but can I just have a little bit of order because I can't hear when there's a little bit of chatter. Thank you. We now move to item 13 on the agenda, which is a report of the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Corporate Resources, Community Governance Review, Stamford and Parish Council. I'd like to invite Councillor Wearmouth to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully this isn't a controversial one either then, which is that we've been asked by the parish named to undertake this review, which is self-explanatory, I think, but if you've read the report. But effectively, they're slightly unusual, perhaps, in the form of most parish councils across the county, in that they are warded. And they are asking if we would consider that instead of being warded, they just become one boundary with all councillors representing all residents in terms of the geography. It seems entirely logical to me based on experience of parish councils across the county. However, there are options available to you in terms of the recommendations. You could choose to accept that as a position and grant their wish, or you could suggest or say that they remain as they are. I'm happy to move the recommendations and that are at point 3 and 3.1 and 3.2, Chair. Thank you.
It's been proposed. Do I have a seconder at all? I'm going to say Councillor Jones, just because I know this is your area and I saw you put your hand up. So, do members have any brief questions of clarification before we move to debate? No, you don't. Thank you. And also, is there any debate on this? Yeah, Councillor Jones.
I'd just like to say a few words on it, if that's all right. I mean, the parish of Stamfordham mainly includes the village of Stamfordham, and then some outlying villages and quite a few small hamlets and isolated housing. So we've got sort of Stamfordham, and then we've got Harlow Hill and Dalton and Eachwick. Both of those two areas, which form the other parishes, are on the edge of the parish, so they both pick up in the middle, these hamlets and isolated houses. Where the dividing line is can be very confusing, as is the Stamfordham itself dividing line. In this day and age, you know, people can contact councillors in any way, by telephone, by internet. If they want to get hold of a councillor or myself, they can do. So I think having 7 councillors covering the whole of the parish makes far more sense. So I'd like to agree and suggest that we adopt, is it option 1, please?
Okay, do we have any other debate? No, it's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? Is that unanimous?
That looks unanimous.
That looks unanimous to me. We'll go for that. Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you. I'll carry on the agenda. Making great progress here, thank you. We'll move on to item 14 of the agenda, report of the Deputy Leader, Cabinet Member for Corporate Resources, the extension of Independent Chair of Standards Committee term of office. I'd like to invite Councillor Wearmouth to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. And again, a relatively self-explanatory report. We've advertised recently for a new independent chair of the Standards Committee, and some interviews went on, so I understand, with members of the committee, I think it was. Ultimately, they could not settle on anybody that they considered that they wanted to appoint. And so the current chair, Mr. Jackson, was asked if he might like to continue in his role, and he has accepted that he would like to accept that offer subject to your approval. And that's what effectively the recommendation asks for at 3.1, which is to appoint Mr. Joe Jackson in the position of Independent Chair of Standards for 1 year until such a time as a new independent chair might be recruited that is satisfactory to the committee. And I'm happy to move that recommendation, Chair. Thank you.
Seconded.
It's been proposed by Councillor Wearmouth, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Do members have any brief questions of clarification? Councillor Dickinson.
Just one quick query, because I'm just a little bit, not confused, but I just wonder what the problem is to find a new one. Is there a particular theme that comes back from the panel, or?
Thank you. I think in some ways it would be probably better to defer to someone who was on the panel than myself. Politely, I think the people that applied, they couldn't find someone that they felt had the necessary skills.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Move to debate. Any debate at all? All those in favour? That's looking unanimous to me, isn't it? Right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Carry on. And we move to our final item on the agenda today, which is a motion proposed by Councillor Swinbank. Members will find in front of them a revised motion which was submitted by Councillor Swinbank in the requisite time. This replaces the version which is in your agenda. I assume members have had time to read this, but if not, please can you indicate to me? Thank you, you've all read it. So I'd like to invite Councillor Swinbank to present this motion. Councillor Swinbank.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose the divestment motion, motion 1, as amended and as you've got a copy of. The amendments were made after consultation with the Section 151 officer, Jan Willis, to clarify the figures presented and to add context to the motion. So I'll leave someone to second it before I go to debate.
Okay, do I have a second?
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 questions, if I can, please. So, could someone please explain to me, first question, someone please explain to me what specific fossil fuel investments have been made? This may be better answered either by the proposer or by someone on the pensions panel. And secondly, as we've already got our own carbon neutral action plan in place, if the pensions plan is to divest its investments, what control, or would we have any control in who purchase those investments? And bearing in mind that we've got our own action plan in place, what's to say that whoever purchases those investments would not have a similar action plan in place, and then, you know, goes off and does whatever it wants with regards to those fossil fuel investments? So those are my two questions. Thank you.
I believe I have to go to Councillor Swinbank for that.
Thank you, Chair. On the first one, it's our understanding that most of the fossil fuel investments that the Tyne and Wear pension fund currently has are in oil and gas. On the second one, in terms of the control, if divestment happened, it would be still down to the Pensions Committee on the Tyne and Wear Pension Fund to set the investment strategy, so they could then decide what else they wish to invest in if they wish to change that.
The leader has indicated and Councillor Dickinson has indicated.
Right, I'm going to go to the leader has indicated here, and then I'll come to Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you very much. I think it's only right and proper that I declare the position of the Conservative group on this particular motion. I'm incredibly proud of the work that we all together have agreed on in terms of our climate change action plan, which will shortly be being reviewed, of our environment policy, which you all agreed to and helped us with, and all the good work that we're seeing across the county on climate change and green policies. But my group feel very strongly that we must not do anything at all that would impact in any way on potential pensioners or people that will benefit from this scheme. For that reason, and also, finally, for the fact that whatever we agree here today will actually not really have any bearing at all, because the Tyne and Wear Pension Fund have their own set of rules and regulations, and they will decide what they want to do. So for that reason, it is a free vote, but I expect the majority, if not all of the Conservative group, will abstain.
Right, was that a question?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It was. Of course it was, yes.
It was rhetorical. That's part of the debate, I think. So, anyhow, Councillor Dickinson.
So, you know, we've just seen other people intervene when they weren't answering the question.
Excuse me, Councillor.
They went on for nearly 5 minutes.
Councillor Dickinson, I did intervene there.
No, you didn't. Right. Climate impact pledge, and this is probably a technical query, Jan, that you might need to answer, I'm not entirely sure. But looking at the investments of the fund, they have increased climate fund investments of over 3%. They've already got the climate impact pledge as a board, and they are working actively on this. We have representatives already on that. I'm just wondering, out with this motion, of which I think, Chair, I have the third copy. I'm not sure. I've got a green one here. I got one on email and I got one in the book, so I'm not sure which one's which. The green one. So for me, it's along the similar lines. In fact, I don't need to go down the similar lines because we're not in debate, but those are the questions around these particular policies that are already in place.
Mr. Dickinson, I will allow you.
What the difference is. But then again, you know, we're going down the same route, unfortunately, as Glenn. I have to agree for the second time today that we can't do anything that destabilises the fund. It supports thousands of retired workers. I'm confident from the reports I received from the fund and feedback from our representatives that climate and the impact and the investment on the fossil fuel industry is being considered and is looked at. But until I see something that's a firm action plan that allows us to safely move away from and it's a minimal amount that's left there, it's not the majority of the fund, until I see that, we couldn't support a motion that wants to accelerate that, potentially at the risk of the fund.
Right, I'm going to move to debate. Okay. Right, before I move to more questions, what I'm going to do, because I was disappointed that wasn't a question, Leader. Because I've allowed that, and Councillor Dickinson, I'm going to allow any of the other group leaders if they wish to make a similar statement before I get back onto the progress we were into the right order we were doing things. So I'm going to ask Councillor Kennedy, did you wish to say anything like that? Councillor Reid, and I assume Councillor Morford's okay with just getting into the debate as well. Okay, so I'll move to questions again, and I'm going to go to Councillor Wearmouth, then Councillor Murphy. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a question. So I will not need to be reprimanded. Can I just ask, Councillor, in terms of divest from fossil fuels by that date, what does it actually mean? Because that's the bit that I don't understand, because someone's, you know, does that mean that someone who hasn't rapidly adopted an electric fleet of vehicles and has opted not to make that conscious decision? Does it mean simply someone whose sole purpose is drilling oil or for gas? Does it or you know, so lots of companies, energy companies, will have multiple divisions, will have a transition plan over a particular period of time. What is it that we're actually trying to capture in that particular bullet point in terms of divest?
Councillor Swinbank.
Thank you, Councillor Wearmouth. What we're trying to capture is companies whose main business is fossil fuels. So that's exploration, production, refining of fossil fuels. That's predominantly oil and gas in this instance.
So therefore, if I may, does it invest in any of those? I don't know, maybe it might be a question for our pension representative, but I can't imagine that there are that many companies that are that specialised that that's the only thing that they do.
It's our understanding, yes, that it does in fossil fuel companies that you'd understand, like Shell or BP.
Right, I think we have to leave that there, Councillor Wearmouth. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask the proposer. This is, I mean, it's just direction of travel, this. We're not actually asking them to do anything. We're encouraging them. We're asking our representatives to encourage them. That's all. And the last one, Pensions Committee Representative writing an annual report. Doesn't it already do that? I used to be on that panel, and we got plenty of reports. So I don't know why we're getting my knickers in a twist over this, because it's a fairly simple thing. It's a general principle, and it's a moral stance by the Greens, who we may or may not agree with. But it's just that agreement. You know, it's nothing. We're not asking them to actually stop doing that. We're just actually asking them to encourage the pension group to think about what they're doing.
I'm going to accept, Councillor Robinson, that you aren't in a group, that I take you as a non-group leader of some. But do we have any more questions? And I'm going to be very strict on questions. No, so I will move to debates then, please. Right, here we go. Right, Councillor Fairsaken, I think you're a seconder, so I'm going to bring you in towards the end, okay? But I'm going to go firstly for Councillor Oliver, then for Councillor Murphy, and then Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. I agree we need to be, as a country, moving away from fossil fuels. And I think we, like every other country in the world, probably started that process too late. But it's important to recognise that this country is one of the leading countries in terms of that direction of travel. And it's also important to recognise, as I think Councillor Wearmouth was alluding to, that fossil fuel companies like Shell and BP are amongst the largest investors in renewable energy. And if you go and see what's happening at the Port of Blythe and on the Blythe estuary, a lot of the businesses involved in that industry are businesses that have been involved traditionally in oil and gas. So I think if we were to move too quickly, there's a danger. We've also had the shock of Ukraine, and there are possibly other shocks around the corner, and we're having what's going on in the Middle East. And the impact that can have on the sort of the economy and on ordinary working families in the UK. So I agree with the principle, but I think it's not up to us as a council to be determining this. So I'm afraid I can't support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy. Can you turn your mic on? Can't I?
I wanted to comment on the reasons that the Conservative group and the Labour group are giving for not supporting this, because I don't think that argument flies. The pensions fund, the board, have a statutory obligation to invest wisely. They cannot take money out of their fund to give it to a poorly performing area of business. So it's a nonsense. That's always going to be their bottom line. So if the only option they had was to disinvest and that would lose money, they wouldn't be able to do that. So I don't think that's a reason not to support this. My point, I think, about the is it's actually quite weak. You know, we're asking our pensions committee representative to go along to a meeting. I'd like to encourage you guys to divest from fossil fuels, and they say, well, no, we don't want to. That's the end of it. You know, I mean, there's no substance to it. It's nothing. It achieves nothing. But on principle, I agree with them. I agree with what they're trying to do. I think it's a good thing to try to encourage investment in other areas, perhaps thinking of it that way rather than thinking of disinvestment from fossil fuels. So I support them in principle, but I think it's very weak, and I think it's weak arguments to not be able to support it, to be fair. Thank you.
Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, my first... I was chairman of the pension committee when it was in the Northumberland Council for several years, and the vice chair, and sat on that committee for many years. So I took great interest in how Northumberland Pension Fund performed. I think my first question is to the proposer of and the author of this, is that you've got 67 councillors here, and this is the third motion we've received in a week, trying to explain what you're trying to do. You know, if you're trying to communicate something, do it once, not 3 times. So I think there's a big lesson to be learned here, is, you know, when you're actually writing these things, and I presume it's come from Green Party headquarters, you need to get it right. I mean, it's obviously littered with errors. You know, it's saying, you know, at least 460 million. Well, it's wrong. It's 239 million. And you've said it was 5.1%. When it wasn't, it was 2%. So it's littered. And you said it was 1.6 million, and it was 600,000. So it's littered with errors. You know, we as councillors, we're trying to read this stuff, and, you know, it's really complicated, really important to actually read this. But to send us some erroneous information that had to be changed not once, twice, but 3 times, and we've only got this now, is not really effective communication. Notwithstanding that, I will support the motion on the basis that I will support the motion, because the motion is one of encourage. But I do think there's a big lesson to be learned by those who are writing such motions, is that 3 goes is not an effective way of us as councillors trying to understand what you're trying to say. Hexham Town Council in the last few weeks passed a similar motion, but it wasn't 3 pages. It was 2 sentences, which actually just said the same, is that we would like to encourage the representative of the Northumberland County Council who represents us on the Tyne and Wear Pension Fund to encourage that the climate change motion that we've signed both at Hexham Town Council and at the County Council sort of aligns with that. So I think that's fine. But, you know, I just think there's a big lesson to be learned from the motion author. Thank you.
Right, I've got Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. It's always disappointing when somebody raises an important issue like pensions, but the angle they're coming from is the wrong one or way down the priority list. I mean, we are facing as a country an absolute time bomb financially, public sector pensions, and there's a great unfairness that people in the private sector are paying taxes for other people to have pensions that they could only dream about. So I think there's huge issues, really important issues to tackle, and this isn't one. And I think actually there's a disconnect between the political class and the public. I think the public aren't interested in this green posturing as much as lots of politicians think. I won't be voting for this.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Kennedy, I was involved with the pension fund for a long time. I was also on an ED outboard of the coast. The pension fund's always a complicated issue. I mean, we have one member on the board of 12, the remainder 11 being Labour people, on the Tyne-Wear Pension Fund, which is in turn a part of the Board of the Coast Pension Fund, which is £43 billion, which has many counties like Sussex and all over the country on that pension fund. And this is a very verbose and a very inaccurate piece of work that's come to us today. But it's pointless and it's meaningless when you read what we're voting on. So I'm quite happy to vote for it, because it actually doesn't mean anything other than we should be doing the best we can to look to achieve our targets of becoming net zero in an appropriate time, exactly as the leader has got for the county of Northumberland. So whereas it's pointless and it's meaningless, I will vote for it.
Councillor Morford.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to respond to some of the points that have been made. So Councillor Kennedy said that it's the third motion he'd received in a week. It's not, it's the second. So we made some minor changes after speaking to the Section 151 officer, the paper copy that you've got today, it does look a bit messy just because it's got track changes, but the copy that you received about a week ago was the one you've received today. If I could respond to Councillor Oliver, who said that some fossil fuel companies are also renewable energy companies, and I think was implying that we could therefore trust them to do the right thing. I'd argue that how you feel about this whole divestment versus engagement argument comes down to whether you trust fossil fuel companies to put the planet and the people that live on it ahead of profit. And given that fossil fuel companies are well known to have intentionally spread misinformation and delayed action on climate change for about 50 years, I think you'd be crazy to put any trust in them. And then just finally, just to respond to Councillor Weymouth's question about what the Tyne-Wear Pension Fund has invested in fossil fuels. It's got, and this will cover one of Councillor Kennedy's questions as well, it's got, as of 31st of March 2023, it had 239 million invested in fossil fuels. Their own reports also show that not only are they still investing in fossil fuel companies, but they're investing in fossil fuel companies that have announced their intention to explore for new fossil fuel reserves or to expand production. And the figures in the first version of this motion were figures from UK Divest. There are various reasons why they differed from the official Tyne-Wear Pension Fund figures. It's really just down to the methodology they used to calculate them. But we, after chatting to the Section 151 officer, we decided to go for the official figures, and that's the reason why we made the change. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it was right of the leader to allow a free vote because many of us aren't quite sure what we're being asked to support. And the closer we look at this, the weaker it gets in my line, which means actually encourage is to suggest that we leave the decisions to the people that have to make those decisions. And I'm happy with that, because what we cannot do on such a complex issue, as Councillor Watson has described, is suggest that we have knowledge of how they should manage a fund of such vital importance to those who refuse it. Because on the line that Councillor Hill has suggested, people are more interested in what their income is than, shall I say, posturing is a little bit strong, but a bit of virtue signalling on how good a thing it is for us to support green energy. Well, of course I do. Of course the council does. It's doing all it possibly can. The reason I'm going to actually put my hand up and support this is because we're asking those that have to make the decisions about the investments that pension funds have to make to actually, where they can and where it's practical and where it's not going to cause damage, and they know where it won't, to do actually, where they possibly can, lower their investments in fossil fuels where it's practical. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm not sure what it will achieve. Thank you.
Right, I've got 3 more people debating than the seconder and proposer, unless people wish, that's not the wish of the room. I've got Councillor Dodd, Councillor Hardy and Councillor Renner-Thompson. Are we happy to then wrap things up with the debate there? That's the indication I'm getting. So I'll go for Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Chair. I am that person. I sit on the Tyne-Wear pension, and I know Councillor Oliver was my deputy once, Councillor Sanderson, and now Councillor Hardy. And now that I'm just into my 50s, I can twist the figures as well. Into my 60s, I'm taking a very keen interest in this subject because I want to know a bit more about pensions as I get nearer to it. And some figures that are true. The Tyne-Wear Pension Fund is worth about £12 billion. It invests in all sorts across the world, locally, here. In December, I was actually on a ship on the Tyne. It's a brand new ship called the Grampian Tyne. And this is a ship that goes out to Dogger Bank. And we, as I say, we, the pension fund, own it. 70 million quid. And there's 3 more on the way from Taiwan. And this ship goes out to Dogger Bank and services all the wind turbines. It's got stabilisers galore, so it can have sort of a gangplank, so it can access the 280 turbines of Dogger Bank A. There's Dogger Bank B, C, and D is being constructed. If it's not servicing, it's helping build them. That is powered by diesel, but the result is 5% of what the UK uses in electric comes out of there. So this is, and I've written the word down, transition. We are in transition, and the figures that were first quoted were totally wrong because it was wanting to lead us down a path. And that path was saying that all food, because we had 5% in fossil fuel, any new investment would be 5%, and that would be it. That is wrong. There is a plan from Tyne-Wear Pension Fund to get to net zero. We are ahead of that curve. So I take this job very, very seriously. Why? Because this fund has to pay out £30 million per month to ex or current or whatever employees of this council. And I reckon that equates to about 25% of Northumberland households rely on this £30 million a month. If that fund did not generate £30 million a month every month, the last port of call is this council and all the other councils. And that 30 million would deplete this council of lots of things. I also have a duty to the people sitting in here, 67 of you, or sitting me, 66 in me. I also have a duty to the people that sit around here, who are called employees, who are contributing to their pension. It says 2% is the revised figure. That is not huge. But the investments that they make are big. Sometimes the investments have an oil sort of heating or gas heating. And these are longer term investments that take a long time to get back. And because this is a national thing from the Green Party to say divest, get rid of, it would be a fire sale. And when you have a fire sale, the price you get ain't very good. So this is a transition. We are ahead of the game. I've taken legal advice on what I can't say. And I've sent you an email I have from Tyne Pension Fund. And that advises me that that to have a representative that votes for this would be a clear breach of their rules, that I could not take part. So I'm not going to vote for, and I'm not going to vote against. It's unlike me to abstain, but I will abstain on this one. The statement said it's a funny word I could hardly say.
Fiduciary.
Fiduciary duties could not be carried out if I voted. So I'm quite happy to sit and watch you guys take it on. And if you want a green councillor, all the electric that goes through my 2 farms comes from renewable energy. My brother and I have invested over £300,000 in green energy. So my house is run by green electric and the farms are green electric. That's a commitment. So I am with you all the way. The problem is we're in transition. And I just hope we make the right decisions that protects a lot of people that are sitting around here watching on the television or taking a keen interest in their future. Future is not oil and gas. We are changing that, but it's a transition. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Hardy.
Thank you. I am the substitute for Councillor Dodd on the Tyne Pension Fund, so I will not be taking part in this. I will be abstaining. But it's such a weak and wishy-washy piece of paper to encourage. The pension fund is already encouraging. And then to pick on companies by name. I worked for BP when it stood for British Petroleum. They pay my pension. It now stands for Beyond Petroleum. I worked for BP before the Greens came along and said, what are you going to do about all this fuel wastage at Grangemouth? They sold it. They sold it to a company that doesn't give a toss about green policies. And that's the danger that we've got when we desist into the narrative. BP is also one of the biggest investors in renewable energies. But, as Councillor Dodd said, we're in a transition. And what I would like to know from our Green colleagues is how we get a school child to school in Northumberland without the use of fossil fuel at the present time. How we manage our agriculture to grow the food that we need without the use of fossil fuel. How we look after our forestry, how we build our infrastructure, and how we build the infrastructure to create green energy without the use of fossil fuels. This is bandwagon jumping, as far as I'm concerned. It's so wishy-washy and full of mistakes. If they Tipp-Exed it out, we would have a white piece of paper. And that's what they should waste. They should wave the flag now and withdraw the motion and bring it back when something actually makes sense. I will not support this.
Thank you, Councillor Hardy. I've got Councillor Renner-Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The long-term aim of the policy, I haven't got a problem with. Net zero is government policy, but disinvestment isn't the way to do it, because the more public funds withdraw from these companies, the less public control we have over them. Surely we should have a share in these public companies so we have a voice when it comes to the shareholders' meetings. In the actual short term, someone asked for a few reasons why we shouldn't support this motion. Oil and gas revenues worth £10 billion to the UK government every year. They cut our reliance on foreign dictators, and they're responsible for 280,000 British jobs that I'm sure we'd all happily see here in Northumberland and the North East. So it would be quite hypocritical to support this motion.
Okay. We're coming towards the end now, so what I will do is I'll introduce the seconder for the proposal, Councillor Fairless Aitken, and then I'll go to Councillor Swinbank. So Councillor Fairless Aitken.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I support this motion because I think it's brave. It's idealistic. Yes, the granular detail, there's niggly flaws. I just think going forwards, we need to sort of get on this wind of change, as it were, from the bottom up and nudge people further up, higher up than us. It started at the Town Council. As Councillor Kennedy said, we had a motion in October that we fully supported to nudge our own Town Council staff pensions, and that was to nudge us at County Hall. And then we're sending that even higher to a South Tyneside Council or the Tyneside pensions team. And it's just sending a message. That's all it is sending a message.
Can I raise a point of order, please, Chair?
Okay, yes.
Do you mind? Okay. I was present at the Town Council meeting at the time when the actual proposition that came through was of a kind of demand situation. Fortunately, myself, and I did have the support of Councillor Kennedy, managed to get that changed to be wording similar to what we have today, which is encourage.
Yeah.
So in actual fact, that wasn't the proposal that came to Hexham Town Council. It was more of the demand.
I've been asked by the... Yeah, that's right. Okay, we'll leave it there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sesford. Demand or not, thank you. Wording aside, it is sending a message. It's the right message. I feel nationally it's on board. There are always going to be issues that are more important and pressing. And I noticed that, Councillor Dickinson also said that we're, destabilising a pension fund. We're destabilising a planet. Please, can we just get behind making a motion that sends this message to people above us, and so they can have it in their meetings and take it on board? That's all I'm asking in seconding this motion. I take on board all your comments about the inconsistencies and the detail, but it's the spirit of it, as Councillor Robinson says, that's really important here. Thank you.
Councillor Swinbank.
Thank you, Chair. I thank all the councillors who've contributed to the debate. It's been interesting. I did have a 5-minute speech prepared, but I'm just going to kind of flick through it and then just sum up, because I'm sure we all have homes to go to. 2023 globally was the warmest year ever since records began in 1850. That means that globally the temperature is 1.4 degrees above that point, that 1850 to 1900 baseline. 1.4 degrees Celsius above. 2015 to 23, the 9 warmest years on record. CO2 levels are still going up. They've gone up 50% since that time, and they are still going up today, which means that the temperature of our planet is still going up. The pledges which have been made by countries across the world, nearly 200 countries across the world, through the UN COP process, to try and meet that 2015 Paris Agreement, will lead us to a world which is plus 2.5 to plus 2.9 degrees warmer by 2100. 2100, that's a long time away. A child born today will be 76 in 2100. We'd all hope to live to 76 and well beyond. Children born in this county today will be facing those temperatures in 2100. What will Northumberland look like in 2100 if it's 2.5 degrees warmer than today? Remember, we've only got 1.4 degrees of warming at the current time. This motion encourages the Tyne Pension Fund, and the word is encourages, to divest fossil fuels from fossil fuels by 2030. That is going beyond its target, and it has done good work in putting a target for net zero divestment by 2050. But that's bringing, specifically on fossil fuels, which are, as has been explained, a tiny part of the pension fund, bringing it forward to 2030 rather than 2050. Now, Northumberland County Council has declared a climate emergency, has a climate action plan, etc. Our target for, which is brilliant. Thank you, Glenn, for doing that. Our target for the county of Northumberland is net zero by 2030. Now, why did we say that? Why did we say 2030? The issue with climate emissions is it's not the date which you reach it, it's how much you emit before you reach it. It's the area under the curve. If we get to 2049 and we haven't changed our trajectory and we think we'll just drop all fossil fuels in the last year, well, I don't think the 2.5, the 2.9 degrees would be anywhere near. It's the area under the curve. It's the amount of emissions, which means that every single tonne of CO2 we can not emit is important. Secondly, we do have a fiduciary duty through our Tyne-Away Pension Funds Committee appointee. We do have a fiduciary duty to the pension fund. The fiduciary duty, though, means that we need to consider the risks of what we're investing in. And the point that we are making here today, the Green Group, is that the risks that we're investing in, specifically in fossil fuels, are greater than we think they are. In 2015, the Bank of England governor said action needed to keep to even 2 degrees C of warming would render the vast majority of existing fossil fuels reserves stranded. What does stranded mean? Stranded means unrecoverable and therefore worthless. Sooner rather than later, there's a good chance that fossil fuel companies will find themselves with stranded assets, and the money invested in those companies will be at risk. Fossil fuel companies are not voluntarily reducing their activities. Their business model is about increased extraction. There is little point in engagement. The sensible option now is managed divestment. Managed divestment by 2030, that gives 6 years for the company to get out of fossil fuels. We're not asking for it tomorrow, 6 years. So,
30 seconds, Councillor Swinburne.
okay, thank you. To sum up then, we have a motion before you. The proposals are at the end of the motion. They're asking us to encourage the Tyne-Away Pension Fund to divest from fossil fuels by 2030, and then there's a couple of other points which I think you'll agree are reasonably sensible. We should step up and encourage the Tyne-Away Pension Fund to divest from fossil fuels by 2030. As leaders of the Council, it is our duty to do so. And I would ask you, therefore, to support this motion. Thank you.
Okay, it has been proposed and it has been seconded. All those in favour of the motion? All those against the motion? Just for those abstaining? Yes, apologies for that. We don't.
That's 10 for, 16 against, and 27 abstentions.
So that was 10 for, 16 against, 27 abstentions. That has fallen.
The motion falls.
Motion has fallen. And with that, I think I close the meeting.